Well, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to our January agenda review meeting. At this time, I will turn it over to Director Brooks.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year to everyone. I just have a few announcements for you all. A couple things coming up I'd like to share. So next month, looking ahead, you all, the Planning Commission will be asked to make a recommendation on the county's land use and transportation plan. As you all know, this project has been underway for the last approximately 3 years. And it really is a result of a lot of data analysis and community input. You all participated in some workshops. Some of you came out to meetings. And it is a process to create a new plan for the unincorporated areas of Knox County. The plan has been posted on Advanced Knox website for some time. I think I sent out a link a month or two ago, but I will resend that out after this next Planning Commission meeting. I'll let you all get past that. But I encourage you to take a look at the website. We've added quite a few new resources to that. And we will be preparing a presentation for you all at your agenda review next month on that plan. So, please take a few moments to look at that. If you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. If there's things that you think that we need to be sure to cover, I would welcome those thoughts in advance so we can be prepared. As you all know, or hopefully know, the Growth Policy Coordinating Committee is going to meet again tomorrow at 5 p.m. in the main assembly room. They'll be considering amendments by Knox County to the Growth Policy Plan. And if approved, that plan is going to move forward to County Commission, the City of Knoxville, and the Town of Farragut for review and approval. The website has been updated. There's a tab specifically to the Growth Policy Coordinating Committee. The plan itself, it's been updated with revised plans. There's a revised amendment. FAQs that have been updated and will continue to be updated, and other planning related resources that I think you all will find of interest. So we encourage you to check that out. So in staff changes, I'm really excited to announce a staffing change to the Transportation Division. With Jeff Welch's retirement this summer, we've been exploring opportunities for the current staff to take on some new roles and responsibilities. And I'm pleased to announce that Doug Burton, some of you may know Doug, he has been with our agency for 34 years, and he has a wealth of knowledge and experience related to transportation planning, but also probably more importantly related to the people and places in our region. And so he will be taking on this new TPO coordinator position, and I think his experience and context is going to position him really well in this new role, and we are looking forward to see what he does with that. So. And he will be your primary point of contact for all TPO matters. 40 under 40. So congratulations are in order for our fellow commissioner. Commissioner Shelso was nominated as one of the 40 under 40 for 2023. So congratulations. If you all haven't seen the brief article, I will send that out to everybody so you all can read it.
Good interview.
Yeah, it was. There are two other business items on the agenda related to the administration of this body. And the purpose of the edits to those is to clean up language and to ensure that our rules and regulations are in compliance with state law. And it's been a number of years since we have thoroughly reviewed either one of those documents. So 11C, I'll just briefly go over them. 11C 23OB, which is agenda item 49, is the administrative rules and procedures. And those were updated to improve readability, remove outdated procedures and practices, align rules with current practices and procedures of the commission, of staff, and then most importantly, to ensure compliance with Tennessee Code Annotated. And there are redlined and a clean version in your packet. 12B 23OB is agenda item 50. Those are the bylaws of the Knoxville-Knox County Planning Commission, and they were updated to make the bylaws more specific to the Planning Commission and Planning Commission meetings. When you read through those two documents over the years, there's been kind of a mixing of the two. We felt like it was very important to make sure that the bylaws are specific to this body and ensure that any general information related to the day-to-day operations are removed to the administrative rules and procedures. We removed outdated language and procedures as we did in the administrative rules. And then again, most importantly, we wanted to ensure compliance with Tennessee Code Annotated. As you all know, things change from year to year, and we really need to stay on top of that. So, going forward, you might see more frequent changes to this if things change at the state level that we feel like we need to address. Any other questions, concerns for me right now? Okay. Want to get into the agenda? Okay, so we're going to start off with agenda item 30. Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, thank you. All right, so I'm just going to try to reposition here. Just give a quick high-level overview of what is going on in this with these few related cases. So what I have on the left shows 4 different colored areas. Those are 4 different rezoning cases that are all associated. The 2 on the bottom of the page circled in or with the red outline. Those are the 2 cases that are going forward this month. The 2 cases on the upper part of the page, the 1L24 and 1K24RZ, those are being tabled. So we're not going to discuss those today, but just know it's all the same applicant. They're all kind of related to some degree, but really we're just going to be discussing the 1M24 and 1N24RZ on the bottom of the page there. So starting off with the 1M24RZ.
So it doesn't squeak so much.
Okay, let's try this. So this one does have a sector plan amendment with it. And what they're requesting is to go from low-density residential to mixed-use special district, which is the South Knox Gateway. So this property is all the way down in the southern part of Chapman Highway, but near the Sevier County border, so it's just north of Seymour. And associated with that is the rezoning to CA General Business. The property is currently partially zoned RA. So real quick let me see if I've got there we go. Let me get my highlighter, laser pointer came off here. There we go. So with the sector plan amendment, so the full parcel is this here, which you can see outlined on the bottom image. What they're requesting for CA is just the hatched area. There's already a strip of CA zoning on the front part of the property, and that's one of those legacy CAs where they, a long time ago, just rezone about 225 feet, 250 feet on each side of the road for a swath. So that's part of that type of zoning along Chapman Highway down here. So they're requesting to expand the CA zoning further to the southwest. As you'll see, the second rezoning that we are going to review is a planned residential on this property, just to the rest of the property. Just to jump ahead, the staff recommendation is to approve the sector plan amendment and the rezoning with one condition, which essentially is that before grading and building permits are issued, the development plan shall be brought to the Planning Commission for review and approval to go over these to ensure that the site is compliant with these mixed-use district standards. And I'll go over that in just a second because I just kind of glazed over that just to get to the recommendation part. So the rezoning again. So it's only the portion highlighted in blue here. As you can see, again, CA zoning kind of strip along Chapman Highway. There is shopping center zoning. That zoning's been there since about the 50s as well, so it's been there for a long time. It's largely undeveloped. There's a golf driving range and a small strip center. And across the street is a large cemetery. Sector plan. So on the left here, you see this is the mixed-use special district now. They're wanting to expand it into their property to the southeast. They're also requesting the same mixed-use special district across the street, which the part of the property they're tabling for now. So if everything gets approved over time as they're requesting, this mixed-use special district will actually be pretty big. The mixed-use special district does specifically talk about expanding to the north side of Chapman Highway to where this The Bauer Fields are, which are baseball fields. That's where the PP Public Park sector plan is currently located. It does not mention expanding into the subject property, though I'm not sure why it didn't recommend it, other than it does recommend low density residential. So I guess the time everyone felt that the low density was more appropriate in the site. I will say that this property in the past did not have the best site distance, so it may have played into it as well on Chapman Highway. Since then, TDOT has made improvements to Chapman Highway here and has improved specifically the intersection at Simpson Road, but also some other improvements along their frontage. So I think things have improved since the sector plan was updated. Just real quick aerial of the site. You see it's largely wooded now. And I'll point out there's a natural gas line that runs through here. You can see that kind of line going through the trees. And I'll point that out more in the next rezoning. Just another view, currently zone CA on the bottom of the page, area to be rezoned, and then further back is the PR5. So the sector plan amendment, or the sector plan, what they want to do is extend this South Knox County Gateway District. It's kind of hard to see here, but essentially what it's saying is rezone properties to a planned district or something that requires development plan review, and then the design principles to consider during the development plan review are in this table here. And I'm not going to go over that, but it's talking about, potential things to look at are low impact development techniques, proposed greenways. There is a proposed greenway on the opposite side of Chapman Highway. Well, in a plan, not necessarily for construction today. Let me clarify. Talks about signage and exterior lighting, architectural design, impervious surfaces, parking lot landscaping, and front and side yard landscaping. So it has a list of items that it wants to address, because this is, as you're coming north on Chapman Highway, this is the entrance to Knox County. So the idea is to try to make sure that this is, aesthetically pleasing area, and so that's the reason why we're recommending the development plan review with the CA zoning, and not just CA zoning by itself, because otherwise these principles don't get considered. Anybody have any questions on that one? I will point this out in the next discussion, but you can see there's stub outs to Simpson Road here. There's one further back here. And then off of Highland View Circle, I think that's the name of the road, there's a couple of stub outs, but essentially they do touch several road frontages, including Highland View Drive here and West Simpson Road up here near Chapman Highway. So the property has a lot of potential connection points, which is beneficial.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about, was so if this part gets rezoned commercial, that one stub out is going directly into the commercial section.
Yeah, we don't really know what they're going to do yet, whether they'll want to even connect to that with the commercial property. It does allow that potential. But until we see development plan, we don't really know how they're actually going to make the connections to the property.
Can you go back to the aerial where it was showing the actual, yeah. So am I right in that the blue area, which would be rezoned commercial, is touching residential right now?
Yes, there's a residential house here, and these two lots are zoned agricultural, but they're platted for houses. And then there's a house here. I guess there's houses along West Simpson as well. Granted, with the gas line easement here, there's a little bit of a buffer to some degree. There's just, but Again, that's also part of the challenge with making a connection back over to West Simpson is having to deal with that gas line that can't. I don't know if they would need to grade down to even cross that or not, but it's just something that it's harder to cross those gas lines. But they may not have much of a problem. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
Is that set back from Chapman Highway? Is that right of way there?
This part here?
Yeah.
Well, this is already zoned CA.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so that zoning would stay regardless of the the recommended condition would not apply to that part of the property. It would just be the back part, which is beneficial because then we have opportunity to review what kind of impacts there is to the adjacent residential and potentially require screening and that kind of thing. Okay.
Want to move on to
yeah.
item 31?
Yep, move on to item 31. So as I mentioned, this is also on the same property. The property is already zoned RA. They are requesting planned residential up to 5 dwelling units per acre. This is in the low-density residential sector plan designation. We are recommending approval as requested. As you can see, again, so high-level sector plan map. The subject property is here in the middle. The property just to the north, like I said, they want to expand that mixed-use special district over, so just know that might change. There's some medium density in the general area, low density to the southwest, and then also to the north and northeast. In the zoning map, again, you can see that there's a swath of commercial on there. There is planned residential to the southwest. Planned residential up to 1.3 dwelling units per acre and 1.47 dwelling units per acre. This property was developed before sewer came in, so those lots are at least 20,000 square feet or more, so a little bit bigger in size. This property, it's a pretty good sized property at 1.47 dwellings per acre, but they're concentrating all those lots down into the most buildable portion. So those lot sizes are about 5,500 square feet. So they're on the smaller side. If you look at a gross density for this built-out portion, it's probably about 4.7 dwelling units per acre. But like I said, the property itself is really large and has a lot of hillside in the back, so they're protecting all that. And okay, so this is the topography map, and the reason why I wanted to show this is that there's only one little portion of this property, or this portion of the property that's in the hillside protection area. But in general, I mean, it still has a lot of slope to it. You know, from West Simpson Road is the low point, you know, going up towards Valley View Drive, it gets higher. So it has these little segment or areas of 15% grade or more here and here, but really the whole property slopes pretty well. So planned residential zoning might be beneficial rather than the RA zone, just to help with the grade on the property. But also we have the natural gas line that cuts right about through here, which they're gonna have to deal with. And that has a 30-foot easement around it. So there's only about 50 feet from the back of these property lines to the edge of the easement, according to the plat, which you can see here. This is the old 1960s plat for those houses. So something that we are dealing with this plan. So the plan growth, the growth plan has a majority of the site in the plan growth area, which is yellow. The area south of the easement is shown as rural, but it's one of those real weird issues. I'm not sure why it did that. It would typically follow some kind of property line rather than leave these little slivers off. So I'm presuming that it's an error in the plan. We're treating this as if it's all growth plan or planned growth area. In case if anybody has any questions about that, we can discuss more, but that's the way we're treating it, as all planned growth area. And so this is the aerial, kind of shows where those stub outs are in the red. The yellow is the gas line again. And And this is just another view of the area to be rezoned and then the proposed CA zoning off to the east or north. Again, so the residential houses that are around in those, it's the houses to the south and to the north are all part of the same subdivision, and this property was going to be part of that same subdivision, just never happened over time. So those were all platted in the 60s and 70s. They're all well over 20,000 square feet each because they're on septic. Anybody have any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Mike's going to take item number 25 as well, 1G24RC.
Michelle's going to do that one.
Oh, Michelle.
Just wait for the slides to catch up with us. Or not. Okay, that's weird. It's saying extend. I hit extend.
Try to duplicate.
Okay, well. I don't know why it's not connecting. I keep telling it to do something and it keeps popping back to the original.
Try plugging it back in.
It's on this one here.
Okay,
There
there
it
we go.
goes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this is a request to go from PC to CA. It's at the intersection of two arterials, Strawberry Plains Pike and East Governor John Sevier Highway. We are recommending denial because we feel like the existing PC zone is appropriate. Can you all hear me? Okay. Okay. Yes, I can. Okay. So looking at the aerial map, you can see there are a scattering of commercial businesses already in the area. So this is sort of the beginnings of a commercial node. And the existing land use kind of shows that a little bit better. Sector plan has these properties along Strawberry Plains Pike designated as general commercial. And this property has, in the southern area, some stream protection area associated with it. And then the bird's eye view here, you can kind of see, get a better idea of the lay of the land. Most of the existing commercial developments along here are pretty sparse, lacking landscaping or any sort of buffering, any sort of design associated with it. And then looking at the zoning map here, so it's currently zoned PC. This is a result of a rezoning case from 2006. That applicant also requested CA, but the Planning Commission approved PC instead. That staff report cited that the opportunity for Planning Commission staff and public review of the plans as the reason for the recommendation to approve the PC zone, and there have been no changes to this area that warrant a change in planning's recommendation. The PC generally allows the same uses as CA, so denial of the request would still allow a myriad of different commercial uses. The PC zone basically allows commercial, office, and light distribution centers. It does not allow outdoor storage unless it's fully screened on all sides by an opaque ornamental screen, but the CA zone has that same prohibition. The main difference between the two zones is that the CA zone would not require additional review by this body. It would not have any other design-related aspects for landscaping or screening other than the 50-foot tree buffer recommended along that Governor John Sevier Highway corridor. Recently, you guys have received some comments from the applicant's representation. They were talking about how the PC zone is for larger parcels. The zoning ordinance does recognize this when it states that it's not likely that the PC zone will be less than 20 acres, but it does not state that they cannot be less than 20 acres. I think we can interpret that to mean whatever buildings, it says that the The intent of the PC zone is to provide the best design and coordinated arrangement of commercial buildings. And I think you can interpret that to mean that whatever buildings are there should be positioned optimally. There are several examples of PC zones throughout the county that only have one commercial building present. The zoning ordinance also says it's the opinion of the Planning Commission if the functional design of a building grouping meets the intent of these regulations, the commission may approve a planned commercial development of less than 20 acres. I think you could also say that the Planning Commission could determine a building can meet the intent, that one single building could also meet the intent of that. Looking at previous rezoning cases, so there are some that have been zoned to CA, but in none of those cases where they did planning recommend approval. So this one down here, both cases were withdrawn. You can barely see the case numbers on here, but one of those was from A to PR and the other one was from Ag to PC. Both of those cases were withdrawn. A planned zone was approved here, which is the residential equivalent of the PC. This one, we recommended denial. It got approved anyway. So we are trying to be consistent in our recommendations and how these have been applied. I will say the CA zone to the north where we did recommend approval, none of the ones that were approved have the same site constraints. So in looking at that, you see there's a FEMA floodway with that hatched portion and then floodplains to the north of that. There's also several sinkhole or several closed contours which indicate potentially that there's sinkholes on the site. There's also some slopes. So even though it's not an HP area, there are some significant slopes above 25 and 40% on the site that they would have to deal with. And for those reasons, we feel like the PC zone would allow consideration of those unique site constraints to come through. And again, looking at that bird's eye view. So because this property has frontage along East Governor's John Sevier Highway, if this body does recommend approval of the CA zone, we would ask that there be a condition typical to how we've been handling any of the other properties that have come through on this corridor, that we are consistent with the recommendations of the John Sevier Highway Corridor Study. And so we've recommended a condition to provide a 50-foot landscape buffer along the eastern property line that's consistent with the commercial considerations within that study. And then finally, the PC zone is more consistent with the CA zone with regard to several different policies, development plan policies within the general plan. And so those are cited within the staff report for your review. But for all of those reasons, we're recommending denial of the CA, again, because PC allows the same uses and would allow this body to look at site plans with consideration of all the site constraints. And welcome any questions.
Michelle, wouldn't engineering kind of take care of the sinkhole and stream protection issues without really us needing to review that?
So they would be able to get a geotechnical survey to see whether or not there were sinkholes. If there are, then there would be a 50-foot buffer required. If not, then yes, that would, they wouldn't need to have that 50-foot buffer. But if those buffers are required, then that kind of forces development to this part of the site or that part of the site. The PC zone also has landscaping requirements. The CA zone does not. It's got a few different, very small amount of design aspects to it. So I don't think it's onerous compared to the CA and what a development would have to provide. But it does provide the opportunity for you all to require something if you thought that it would be appropriate at that site.
I mean, it backs up, I guess, to the south, what we have industrial there, and then we have that old dairy building to the east. Just being on that corner, other than, I think you said about the buffer, where did you want that buffer? Was it to the south?
The East Governor John Sevier Highway. So just, there we have that 50-foot tree preservation recommendation of that study. So we're requesting to honor that condition if you all do decide to approve CA.
Okay, so other than, I guess, the sinkholes, the stream protection, how does it differ than the one on the northwest corner?
This one doesn't have any site constraints at all, whereas this
The
one
northwest
does.
corner?
That's correct, yeah. This one, I can pull up KGIS, let me get out of. So.
But again, I guess I'm trying to get some understanding there on the site constraints.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't they be dictated by engineering and geotechnical reports?
So there is some development plan review that does happen by engineering. I guess we thought the PC zone was appropriate so that you all could say if you felt like there were any conditions that were appropriate that you wanted to add. So they could submit a site plan that could go through CA that engineering could develop, but they would have no landscaping required other than the 50 feet along East Governor John Sevier Highway. So I guess it's really kind of comes down to the type of development we would want to see along that corridor and how we want to develop that. And planning has been consistent with our recommendations throughout and citing these things as a reason for the PC zone and to support the aesthetics, to support the site constraints, to support all of that, to kind of get a better looking development along those corridors.
Thank you.
Looks like there's no more questions. Thank you, Michelle. Now we're going to turn it over to Whitney to cover item 19 and item number 23.
Okay, this is a rezoning request from agricultural to planned residential up to 5 dwelling units an acre on this 11.5 acre site at Snyder Road and Catlett Road. The planned residential zone at 5 dwelling units an acre is consistent with the low density land use classification in the Northwest County Sector Plan, which allows consideration up to 5 dwelling units an acre in the planned growth area. This property does have a blue line stream and some steep slopes within the hillside protection area that runs through the middle of the property. The hillside protection area is about 3.1 acres on this 11.5 acre site. The recommended density for the hilltop protection plan is 4.61 dwelling units an acre. At a density of 5 dwelling units an acre, a maximum of 57 units could be built. And since the 1990s, there's been a significant amount of agricultural rezonings to planned residential at low and medium densities, anywhere from 3 to 12 dwelling units an acre in the area. Though the general trend is small lot, single family detached residential neighborhoods, there are some multifamily dwelling units in the area. Within the past 10 years, Snyder Road has been improved, and Outlet Drive along the bottom here was completed and connecting Level Road and North Campbell Station Road. And the recommendation is to approve the planned residential zone up to 5 dwelling units an acre.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we'll move on to item number 23.
Okay, so this rezoning request is from agricultural to planned residential up to 5 dwelling units an acre. The site is 42.44 acres. It's at the intersection of South North Shore and Harvey Road. So the low density residential land use classification and the county sector plan, which allows consideration up to 5 dwelling units an acre within the planned growth area. At a density of 3 dwelling units an acre on this 42.6 acre site, a maximum of 127 units could be built. And this includes houses, duplexes, and multi-dwelling structures. Since the 1990s, there's been a significant amount of agricultural to planned residential rezonings in the area, with the general trend being the small lot. Lost my pointer here. And just want to point out that this would be an extension of the planned residential zone of 3 dwelling units an acre from the south and west. This portion of North Shore Drive is connected to many parks and residential areas. There are improvement plans for multimodal connections and modernization of the roadway for improved safety. If the property is rezoned to planned residential at 3 dwelling units an acre, and they did the 127 maximum units, a traffic study would be required during the development plan phase. Additionally, during the development plan phase, we'd look at stormwater, landscaping, and lot layout concerns. The recommendation is to approve planned residential up to 3 dwelling units an acre because it's consistent with the sector plan and the surrounding area. Any questions?
It's a quiet group today. Thank you, Whitney. We'll take a minute and switch computers and turn this over to Jessie, and she's going to cover item number 5 and number 18.
All right, item number 5. This is a one-year plan and a sector plan amendment. No rezoning is involved. So this is a request to amend the plans to medium-density residential/office. It's a 5.38 acre parcel just southwest of the intersection of Loves Creek Road and Buffett Mill Road. I-640 runs along the west side, and this property is at the very edge of the Alice Bell Spring Hill neighborhood. In the one-year plan, the land use classification is low-density residential. There is a stream protection overlay in the northeast corner, which would be retained. The Northeast County Sector Plan land use classification is office, which carries that designation down from the commercial uses to the northwest. It's not very common to have one-year plan discrepancies with the sector plan, but they do exist here and there. Sometimes those are addressed in the annual one-year plan update, which is coming up. But we also rely on property owners to make those requests. In this case, neither land use classification aligns with the current zoning district, which is RN4. As you can see, RN4 is the most intensive residential zoning district in the city jurisdiction here. Though you can see RB, which is general residential zoning in the county jurisdiction to the east. That subdivision is clearly not built out at the maximum intensity permitted by that zone. It's pretty spacious. This RN4 zoning will not change with the land use classification amendment, but what an amendment would change is support for a potential special use request within the RN4 district, since adherence to adopted plans is one of the review criteria. So, for example, if townhomes or multifamily over a certain unit threshold were pursued here, that would be a special use review, and we would look to the land use classification. As you can see, this property is a bit secluded with tree canopy, right-of-way on 3 sides, and no immediately abutting development. You can see there's a Walmart and significant commercial development to the northwest. And then there's ongoing single-family residential development to the northeast, also to the southeast and southwest. There is what appears to be a stream running along the rear of the property line. It doesn't show up as a blue line stream, but it is apparent in the aerial that it feeds into Loves Creek, which is across the street from this property. And along Loves Creek, there's also a greenway trail that you can kind of see that leads to Spring Place Park to the south. It's also noteworthy that there is a bus stop that is set to remain after CAT Reimagined right at this Walmart. So it's a quarter-mile walking distance from this property. This property has historical significance as the site of Alfred Buffett's homestead, after whom Buffett Mill Road is named. The Italianate house, I had to ask Lindsay how to pronounce that. The Italianate house was first built in 1867 and is known as the Maples. It's one of the few antebellum properties remaining in Knox County, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. So any demolition request of this property would be subject to review by the Historic Preservation Planner, Lindsay, and that's codified. Staff are recommending approval of MDR instead of MDRO, so just medium density residential. This designation reflects the property's location as a transition between a large commercial node to the northwest and single family development surrounding in the south. It's also supported by its proximity to transit and community facilities like the Greenway and the park. RN4 is the most intensive district permitted in MDR, and if townhouse or multifamily development were pursued, it would undergo either administrative or special use review, depending on the number of units. We are recommending MDR instead of MDRO because MDRO considers more intensive zoning districts like office, RN5, and RN6. Given the historical significance of the property and the stream considerations on the site, MDR is more appropriate here, and it does align with the current zoning. For example, office zoning doesn't have any impervious threshold, so for reasons like that, we are recommending MDR. Happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, did someone say something?
Yeah, you go.
All right. For if it were to get MDRO and one day seek RN 5 or 6, do those also have the same reviews like RN 4 does in MDR for like higher density townhome developments?
No, so there would be more units that would be permitted by right than in RN4. So there's more oversight within RN4.
Did staff consider, if this is even possible, adding a historic overlay as part of the rezoning? Is that allowed or recommended in a case like this?
I would defer, yeah.
We did not consider that as part of this request.
Okay.
I've got one more question. I guess this is almost kind of going back to what Chairman Hill was talking about before with the historic stuff as well as the stream that you had mentioned on the property. Don't those? I guess there's mechanisms in place. I mean, they have to make application. If they were to take the house out, they would have to make an application and go through all that process because it is on the historical. I don't know if they're planning on doing that or not, but with respect to the stream, we still have to meet all the engineering, or they have to meet all the engineering to do that. I guess my question is there a reason that a higher density would be bad there? I mean, you're right next to a very significant commercial node. That's my question. I mean, it seems that by design you're saying, hey, we don't want anything any more than the RN4 that's currently zoned, so we're just going to keep the sector plan there. Can you explain why that a higher density would not be in keeping, given, because it's still, to me, it's a transitional situation between the lower density residential and the high intensity commercial, especially with the Knox reimagined or the CAT reimagined. It's going to be walking distance to commercial, walking distance to transit, that type of thing. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, similar to what Michelle described, this would just allow for more oversight over the density. There's still a significant amount of residential intensity that's possible on the site with its current zoning of RN4. And again, this isn't a rezoning. RN4 just allows for special use review or administrative review of certain types of residential forms. It also, and given the environmental and historic sensitivities of this property, that seemed appropriate.
One other question with the historic is, you mentioned the process if they were to demo the house. Is it?
They're not going to demo the house.
What year was the house built?
1860. Hold on.
And the applicant has stated to us, of course, anything can change. They can change their mind and they can sell the property, but the applicant has stated to us that they don't have any intention of, they intend to incorporate this house into their development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious what the protections are, even though, so it's on the National Registry, but are they able to, is someone able to demo something like that without, I know that there's like the moratorium on some historic properties, but is this one that would have to be voted on by anybody if someone was to?
So the historic preservation planner, Lindsay, can pursue a demolition delay, which would allow for the collection of records, salvaging, and potential organizing around the property. So that's the process that's codified, would be a demolition delay.
Properties that are antebellum also by state law have to be approved for demolition by the jurisdiction. So city council would also have to approve this demolition permit.
Isn't that if it's built before 1865 or earlier though, right?
Yes.
And this is 1867?
It was showing up, I thought, as an antebellum, but maybe it's not. If it's not, then
Well, it's considered antebellum, but it was built in 1867. Although there was an addition made, so maybe the first level was built prior to that. But what I saw, it said 1867. But there are no intentions to demolish anything except a shed in the back. And Lindsay did come out and review this property with the applicant a while back.
Jesse, I got a question.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. So it's currently RN4. Do they have to go through a plan rezoning from office to MDR in order to develop it at RN4?
No, but it does, if they are going to pursue something that requires a special use, like a certain number of townhomes or multifamily units through RN4, we would be looking at the land use classification for support in that special use request. So updating the land use to align with the zoning supports, a potential special use in the future.
So they're not interested in a higher, or like an RN5 or RN6, I assume, since they're not asking for that?
That was not part of this request. No.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is number 18, 12D23RZ. This is a 10.74 acre parcel on the south and west side of Sam Lee Road in Hardin Valley. It's just north of the educational hub that is Hardin Valley Elementary, Middle, and the Hardin Valley Academy High School. Steel Road is nearby to the east, and it leads to the minor arterial of Hardin Valley Road to the south. This request is to rezone from agricultural to planned residential with a density up to 6 dwelling units per acre. The parcel is immediately surrounded by agricultural zoning, but you can see that there are planned and low-density residential subdivisions in both directions on Sam Lee Road. The highest PR density around is 4 dwelling units per acre. Unlike those other residential subdivisions, however, this property is part of an area that is designated MDR, medium density residential, in the Northwest County Sector Plan, which considers densities up to 12 dwelling units per acre in this case. This MDR land use classification is tied to a village center opportunity that was identified around the intersection with Steel Road because of development potential and the schools being concentrated there. This is a forested lot. I believe some significant grubbing and clearing has already started occurring. Although this property is not in the hillside protection overlay, it does have some steep slopes. This is because the hillside protection overlay has a threshold of 5 contiguous acres of slope to be included in that overlay, and that's not present here. Planned residential would permit concentrating density in the less sloped portions of the property, which is appropriate in this case. The existing land use map shows significant agricultural or open space in the area, but there's also a notable amount of single-family subdivisions. Staff are recommending approval of 5 dwelling units per acre versus 6 dwelling units per acre. This balances the property's optimal location next to the schools while keeping it within a low-density residential threshold that is in line with surrounding residential character. The subject property is within the boundaries of the Hardin Valley Mobility Plan, which was adopted in 2019. This plan describes a long-range goal to widen existing travel lanes on Sam Lee Road and create additional shoulder width for all users. This property's inclusion in the parental responsibility zone, which is indicated in that kind of green overlay, would mean that sidewalks would be a consideration in any future development of this property. And that would contribute to the sidewalk network, which it's hard to see, but there are sidewalks all along here. The Senior Director of Engineering and Public Works, Jim Snowden, has already scheduled a meeting with the applicant to discuss future capital improvements and potential partnership. And as you know, a planned residential development plan would come through this body, which would incorporate input from engineering and the general public. The yellow on the map shows the planned residential growth area, which includes this property. And this boundary is expected to expand westward with the new growth policy plan. So this is an area where future development is anticipated. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, if no other, is there any other business that we'd like to discuss? If not, we're adjourned.